Hi, everyone, and Happy New Year. And I know, good for you. This is the year, part of your New Year's resolution was I'm going to finally find out about those Irish ancestors. And I know the next thing on your mind is where do I start? Well, it may not be quite that hard. In fact, we've got some good starting points for you. In fact, it all starts here in North America. Okay, let's go over some good starting points. You might already have some of these already in the family records. Also, some vital records, both church records and civil records. Obituaries, good starting point. Land records, maybe looking at some cemetery records from some of the cemeteries where your family is buried. Census records, and even county history records. Some of these books from county histories, they might contain some information about your ancestors. Okay, you've got that done. Now what? Or more like, I've been down that path already. What else could I find? You might be surprised where you could find some records as well. In fact, the local town newspaper could tell you a story you never imagined could ever happen. Remember when Aunt Martha gave you that box of family items in there and you found pictures and things like that about the family? And you said every year, yes, I'm going to go through this and get it organized. Well, maybe this is the year you should go through it because there could be some clues in there as to where the family came from. You might find some family notes which could help you develop a family tree or even a family group sheet, which will help you go back to the next generation. Civil and church records can then provide you with a list of information that you may not already know, like names of the previous generations, maybe dates and origins of immigration, and details about the ancestor you might not even be aware of. You can also find some of this information on some of the more popular genealogy websites and might find some information about the ancestor you never knew anything about. The idea is to get down to what you believe is the immigrant ancestor and then go from there as to where that immigrant ancestor came from. There are many of the large genealogy websites that have census records, for example, and other records as well, which is very important. You can also find some of these census records on the National Archives website, which is called archives.gov. Vital records could contain a lot of information. Here's a situation from Cook County, Illinois, that shows a declaration of intent to naturalize back in 1915. In this case, it provides the location of birth and the date of birth, as well as the time and date of immigration. In some cases, obituaries can also provide some really valuable information. In this situation, it not only provides the date of birth, the location of birth, and in this case, this obituary goes on to explain the dates of marriage, location of the marriage, and the month and year when they moved from Massachusetts to Wisconsin. Now, civil documents, in this case, death certificates, can be very important, although, as you see here, a couple of examples, you can see that the birth is only listed as Ireland, so it really doesn't give you a lot of information. In fact, the parents' names aren't even listed. Now, a will or an estate could actually provide you some interesting information. Here's an example from 1893 in Idaho, where an individual had passed away, and it not only lists the location of his birth, it lists where the mother lived at the time of the death, and even goes down as far as the townland of the location in Ireland. Okay, here's some key points to remember. Stay organized, either electronically or hard copies. Keep them in folders, even by family names. Secondly, use pedigree charts, group sheets, timelines even. Those are really good to use. Not everything is going to be on one website, so that means you have to be the detective and check out several different sites to find the information you're looking for. And if it's not there today, with digitization programs going on, try again tomorrow. And that leads to the point is, are you going to run up against that brick wall? Of course, we all do at some point in time or another. But there's ways around it, and just keep trying. You're the detective. You can do it. Just remember, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was your family history. So, one of the keys to successful Irish research in North America is to start your research here and then start looking at records over there. Now, whether you plan on looking online or whether you're taking the big trip to Ireland later this year, then the key is to do as much as you can do here before you head over there. Now, a couple of things I know your relatives probably told you, oh, their Irish records just don't exist anymore. They're gone. And that's not really true. I mean, yes, there are some that were destroyed. We'll explain that in just a minute. But for the most part, you'll be surprised at how much is now available, not only at some of the archives, but also online as well. And there's a thing that, that place in between Ireland and North America that really kind of intimidates people, you know, the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, that's it. Well, since the advent of the internet and some of the advances in digitization programs that we have out there, the ocean is more like a lot of us refer to it as a pond. Doesn't sound so bad that way, does it? The point being, though, is that there's a number of records now that are being digitized that you can find online, not only here in the U.S., but also over there on some of the websites. So before you get on the plane and head over to Ireland for the big trip, or if you're just starting out, this is where you start. Start here, look on some of the online sites, then start to look on some of the sites in Ireland. What your relatives are most likely talking about was the explosion and catastrophic fire that occurred at the Four Courts building on June the 30th, 1922 in Dublin. And yes, in that instance, hundreds of years of records were destroyed in that explosion and fire. And that included many Church of Ireland parish records, 19th century census records, and some wills and estate records that were also destroyed. But not all was lost. In some situations, copies were made, and those copies were being held in other archives or, in some cases, private collections. And in the case of some of the Church of Ireland parish records, some of those records, copies were made before the originals were sent down to Dublin, and those copies remain in existence. And in some cases, other records weren't even kept at the Four Courts building. Okay, so here's a list of major archives, libraries, offices in Ireland and Northern Ireland where you can find records. Many of the records on the websites are free, and you can find the websites to these archives and libraries on my blog page. And where you see the asterisks after the name, those are either subscription or pay-per-view sites. But still, you can find quite a bit of information even on these free sites as well. Now, did these records actually exist? Well, here's a transcription of a will that dates back to 1597. The original most likely doesn't exist anymore, but you can still get a lot of information out of the transcription. I found this at the Public Records Office in Northern Ireland. And with this next one, a lot of people don't realize that the vestry minutes or the church minutes were never sent down to Dublin. Many of them were kept in local custody. Many of them remain on microfilm at some of the archives. And some of these vestry or church minutes might have some information about your ancestors. So there's a few ideas for you if you're just starting out your research, or if you plan on heading to Ireland for the first time to do some genealogy research. Just remember, most likely you're not going to be able to accomplish everything on the first trip. So narrow down your questions down to just a few items, and then you'll have a better chance for success. But the bottom line here is start your research here. Do as much as you can here and narrow down your questions when you get over there. Good luck on your research.